Hello, BookTube. I have a little mail for you, very little mail. It's just one package, but it is a box, and it's from a publisher, so it could be a finished copy of something. I like opening my mail with you, so there's no reason the mail haul has to be 30 minutes long. I thought we'd just see what this one thing is, and then we'll call it a day, and we'll call it quits. I've got my package disposal unit here in the room, but she's feeling a little bit out of sorts because it's hot. And she's not a terrific fan of the heat, so, but it's not all that hot, so I shouldn't be indulging her all that much. I think that Boston is probably going to get hot next week. I'm pretty sure that that's going to happen, and that we'll see how that goes. It can't get hot enough for me, but I do worry about my little schnauzer because she is fairly sensitive to the heat. So let's see what we have here. Oh no, this is not a finished copy. This is, oh, right, we have some box disposal activity. Whee! Ooh. Well, you're never going to be able to get it through there, Frida. She won't, it's not good enough for her to attack this. She has to bring it over to her blanket and destroy it there. But in order to do that, she has to get it past the electric fan. So here, I'm going to throw it over there so that she can just, here you go. Here you go. There you go. This is actually a huge advance copy of something, so it's not a finished copy at all. Oh God, help us! Oh my God. Okay. All right. This is from Farrar, Straus and Giroux. This comes out in September. This is the advance copy. Okay. All right. All right. This is Wagnerism, Art and Politics in the Shadow of Music by Alex Ross, who is great. So I've got a yin and yang. I've got a positive and negative reaction going on here because I don't want to read 1,000 pages about Wagner, but I will read 1,000 pages of Alex Ross on anything. So let's find out what we have here. Richard Wagner is a towering figure in the history of modern music. Creations such as Tristan and Isolde, Parsifal, and the epic Ring Cycle are staples of the operatic canon, and powerful works of art that transcend boundaries in their day and continue to resonate deeply with contemporary audiences. Oh boy. Of course, Wagner also cast a dark shadow over the 20th century because of his anti-Semitic and nationalist views during his lifetime and the Nazi Party's posthumous embrace of his work. Wagner's legacy is inextricably bound up with modern history's most horrifying tragedy. But as the New Yorker classical music writer Alex Ross's brilliant and ambitious forthcoming book deftly demonstrates, boiling down Wagner's legacy to this single facet, as salient as it is, overlooks the countless, often surprising corners of art, literature, and history where Wagner's influence can also be found. Perhaps no other single figure has loomed as large over the whole of modern art, culture, and ideas. Oh, come now. To quote Nietzsche, you knew he'd be lugged in, and one of the epigraphs of Ross's book, quote, Wagner sums up modernity. It can't be helped. One must first become a Wagnerian. Yeah, thanks, Friedrich. I'll pass. And also, Wagnerism, the book, is neither a straightforward biography of the composer nor a book primarily about his music. Instead, this magnum opus can be read as nothing less than a secret history of modernism as viewed through the lens of Wagner's work and its influence. Oh, I gotta confess, I'm not interested in Wagner at all, but I gotta confess I am now interested in this book. No doubt. I mean, it would have been anyway, because Alex Ross is one of those, what's the BookTube term? Auto-buy authors? I don't buy books, but nevertheless, he is one of those, I mentioned it many times before on this channel, that some authors build up an escrow account of goodwill. And all of their future books can only draw from that or add to it. But if it's only when that bank account that goes to zero or is drastically in arrears that I will drop the author. But this author, between the New Yorker and this book, the one that's mentioned on the cover, The Rest is Noise, and a bunch of other stuff that he's written, between all of that, I'm going to read and like anything that he writes. I already know that. So his escrow account could not be in better shape. And that's just as well, because this is asking a lot. This is no small book. How many pages do we have here? Do we say? Do we say? How many pages? It's got to say, somewhere. 800. Anyway, In these pages, Ross takes us from the French symbolists and the great works of 20th century literature to the Chicago School of Architecture and the paintings of Belgian Art Nouveau. He shows us how queer and feminist trailblazers, mystics, Satanists, socialists, and yes, fascists, all found inspiration in Wagner's work. He introduces us to unlikely Wagnerites, such as the great American novelist of the plains, Willa Cather. Okay, I did not know that. Okay. 9 years in the making and greatly anticipated both here within FSG and without. They're right about that. Pub sheets usually gild the lily on that. They say the whole world's been waiting for this, and so have we. And in this case, music aficionados certainly wait for anything by this guy. So that's probably true. Wagnerism is Alex Ross's first book-length work since his classic Pulitzer Prize finalist debut, The Rest Is Noise. In the intervening years, he's received fellowship from both the MacArthur and Guggenheim Foundations and has won awards from the National Book Critics Circle and the ASCAP. Replete with surprises and fascinating insights on nearly every page, Wagnerism will leave you eagerly wanting to seek out each novel, film, and work of art that Ross discusses. Maybe the ones that were influenced by Wagner. I doubt that this book or any other book in the world could make me eagerly seek out Wagner's music itself. I doubt I could do that. Okay, well, that's all there is to it. It's an 800-page book on the effect, the massive critical shadow cast by Wagner and his music. I never know what I'm going to get here. Granted, this is the day's only book, but it's utterly fascinating. It's September, so I don't think I'll read this right away. It's mighty tempting. It's a new Alex Ross book. That's mighty tempting. But it's a long way away. I will dip into it. I'll read the first couple of I'm assuming that it has chapters. Maybe if it's totally Wagnerian, it doesn't. But I will read the first couple of bits of this, and if it looks incredibly dense, something that I might need to read now and then lay down to pasture for a while in order to take it up again. I will obviously read this a second time. Obviously I will. But if it looks like I might need to do that, then maybe I'll continue on. I'll dip into it this weekend. But I'm thinking not. I'm thinking that much as I love this author and much as I am now intrigued by this book, I think probably I will wait to do that first read until later in the summer. I don't know. I could also do a little bit of prep work before I read this. Naturally, the book that comes to mind is The Proud Tower by Barbara Tuchman, which is suffused with Wagner. It might be great. I don't need much incentive to reread that book anyway. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should... I don't even know if I have a copy of The Proud Tower. Oh my God, can you believe it if I don't? But maybe I should reread that, and I strongly recommend it to the rest of you. It's a tremendous book. It's a little overshadowed by The Guns of August, but it's a tremendous book. Maybe I should do that just to get the old scent back before I do this. But ultimately, I will do with this book what I do with so many books. I always go through this little speech about how I will leave a book until, if it's coming out in October and it's only July, then I'll leave it for a while and not read it right away. But do I do that? No. I don't always do that, as anyone can tell if they watch this channel. Usually what happens in the wee small hours when my will is weak is exactly what should happen. Usually what happens is that the final judge of whether or not I will read the book right away, even though it's not coming out for months, is the book itself. Usually what I will do is do a variation of what I just described. I will say I'm going to dip a toe in just to see what it's like. And if the book holds me, well, then I read the whole thing. That's exactly the prize you give to a book, if it can hold you, is to read the whole thing. That's exactly what I'll do. I use the same methodology even when it comes to other things. Like, for instance, my beloved science fiction, square-bound science fiction anthologies. These things. It's usually got one story after another in those things, and I don't have any obligation to any of them. What I will do with volumes like that, the first read-through, is just wait. I will just start a story, and if I'm bored or if I'm starting to look ahead to see just how long this goes on, then I will skip ahead to the next story. And if it does the same thing, I'll skip ahead to the next story. And sooner or later, guaranteed, in those square-bound science fiction anthologies, I will get to a story that just grabs me. And I wouldn't even think about skipping ahead. I don't want it to end. I don't want to know how many more pages are left, and I wouldn't dream of getting bored or skipping to the next story. Well, That is a very valuable thing. That's a very valuable yardstick. That is a way for me to know. Without getting, later on, I get lost in the details of plot execution and the details of research and whatnot. But that first impression is a very valuable thing. The stories that do that, or in this case, the books that do that, I remember that about them. That's a valuable thing to know about them. I do that all the time. All the time. I've said many times on this channel that I will often download book samples of new books or forthcoming books from places like Kobo or Amazon or whatever. And I've often commented, it's absolutely true, that the yardstick that I use as to whether or not I want to continue to read that book is how badly I want to read more when the sample ends. Which is why I think authors or publishers or whoever it is that does it, these evil people who do it, who give a book sample and it isn't any part of the book, it's the dedication page and a couple of blank pages and then an acknowledgments page and then the table of contents goes on for 3 pages and then just as you're about to get to even a single sentence of prose, you get that little display saying end of sample. I delete those immediately. And that is very bad. That is not a sample of a book. That an electronic sample of an electronic book is meant to be you reading a tiny bit of it while standing over the book at a table at a bookstore. And the argument probably in bean counter meetings and publishing houses is, well, no, we're not going to give away any of the actual prose of this book. We're not going to give away any of that. Maybe there are even some authors who are big enough a-holes to insist on that and say, no, you can do an electronic sample of my book, but it's got to be everything else. You're not going to give away any of my prose. And, you know, they've never said that about that casual browsing in bookstores. They're perfectly okay with that. It's anyway. The point of that long digression is that I will dip into this, and maybe it will hold me. Maybe by Monday I will have read this, and maybe I will have enjoyed it. I find that hard to believe. Alex Ross is a wonder worker when it comes to writing nonfiction about music, but boy, oh boy, does he have his work cut out for him. So there you go. That is your mail for today. Wagnerism, an 800-page book on how everybody likes Wagner. Oh my. I will report back. In the meantime, if there's more mail, I'll assemble it and open it for you. But otherwise, I will wrap this up. I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.